All right, we are live on the. Let me make
On the
sure.
tube?
We're live on the tube.
Live on the
What
tube.
up,
What up,
tube?
dude?
All right, let's just hit the record button. Let's get this thing started.
Let's
And
do it.
get this. Dun. Welcome to another episode of Business
Business, bro.
Bros. I don't know. It always
Nah,
sounds
we're gonna
weird
do it,
on
man.
the weird thing. But anyways, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Hernancius here, host of the Business Bros podcast, where we're helping you create generational wealth. Create wealth today and generational wealth for tomorrow, along with my co-host.
The insurance bro, James Cias, with Pipeline Insurance, where we empower licensed professionals to effectively add insurance to their existing businesses.
So some
This is what we do.
major stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm working from home.
Working from home. One.
So is everybody else, basically.
Most people are working from home right now.
Yeah.
Pure madness. So governor essentially has changed the way we do things, and has made it. I guess it's officially law. Is it martial law? What do we?
No,
What do we
no, no,
consider
no,
this?
no, no, no. It's
So
not
what is
martial
this?
law. I mean,
It's not martial
uh,
law because there's nobody out there with guns telling you to stay in home, right?
exactly.
However,
I mean, it's basically, the governor saying, hey, if you are not essential personnel, just stay the F home.
yeah, well, I mean, essential personnel also has moved around, and what people believe to be essential to them is also the big definition, because we have a lot of people who are still walking around, still doing their thing, and it's affecting people. Well, okay, so if you're self-employed, I can understand the struggle, right? Because they gotta pay the bills, which kind of leads into today's subject. I'm gonna actually have you got the article open up in front of you.
I do have it.
Okay, so this is an article that came in courtesy of the Hartford, and this is in response to what the governor enacted, and then also more overall grasping. This is what Congress enacted recently. So you want to read a little bit about it so people can get a little more information?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess I'll just discuss what it's extending. So the original law is the Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, of 1993, which guaranteed 12 weeks of unpaid leave. In other words, you could leave your job for 12 weeks. You won't get paid during that time, but at least you won't lose your job. So this new one that was signed into law a couple of days ago is going to require employers with less than or fewer than 500 employees to provide 10 days of paid sick leave, 10 days of paid sick leave, and if needed, 10 weeks of paid family and medical leave to stay home with a child due to school or daycare closings. So this is really, really helpful for those of you out there who have kids stuck at home now, and you don't have
not able to go to work
for them, not able to go to work. Like, somebody's got to stay home with them kiddos, right?
Yeah, dude, it's tough times, and that's one of those things where not having funds is a big, right now when it initially happens is when the worry starts to set in, right? Like all of a sudden, that in the next coming 2 weeks, 4 weeks, how are you gonna put food on the table? Hopefully you stocked up and you have some here to go. But things like how are you gonna pay your rent and how are you gonna do all these sorts of things. Luckily, there's been some changes in not some changes. Some of the banks are stepping up and allowing you to put a halt on your mortgage payments, which is really going to help. And if you're a renter not able to make your payments, really going to help your landlord. Whoops, sorry.
What happened?
Nothing. I'm playing with the setting up the Facebook to show the YouTube, and then the YouTube played. But
oh, nice, gotcha. Couldn't even hear it.
So good. So, anyways, these changes that are happening, these laws are coming into place. These companies are shifting things to try to help alleviate some of the financial stress that's going on. So what we're talking about today is specifically more with the Family Medical Leave Act and the fact that Congress passed the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which is going to make some amendments to that. So some of you who've already use family medical leave for example, like you had a child and you gave birth and you had a certain amount of weeks that you could take off from work, but then you wanted to stay home with your child a little bit longer. So the Family Medical Leave Act allowed you to do to take that extra time and have that money come in. This is that exact program that was there, except now there's some changes to it to try to help families that are going through some financial difficulties during this time. So who is eligible for this thing, Ham? Who is eligible for the Family Medical Leave Act?
To be eligible, employees must be employed by private employers with fewer than 500 employees. So if you work for a company that's 500 employees or less, you're good. Plus, you have to have worked there for at least 30 days. This is the one that I find interesting. Self-employed individuals who would otherwise qualify for that family leave under a traditional employer are also entitled to get paid leave. So how do you be a self-employed person who would get that leave? Like, isn't your employer paying that?
Normally your employer is, right? So, I'm not 100% sure on how the self-employed would work, but they are capped to 50 days anyways. And so this is a number of days and a number of employees that you would need to have for your company going forward. And one of the big things that always get asked once you qualify for this thing, like, it's how much am I going to make? So like if you're a higher income earner and you're making, I don't know, let's say an 8-hour day and you're making like $50 an hour, that's going to be a $400 day, and you're not going to be making that under the Family Medical Leave Act. There's going to be caps to that. So even though you work at you're at an employer that's eligible for this particular program, you've met the employee requirements. So you didn't just start there; you're there for more than 30 days. There are limits to what you can get paid on. You want to read that one, Ham? What do the paid family medical leave benefits pay?
2/3.
2/3
of your regular pay, capped at $200 per day and $10,000 overall. The other thing that I think is important to know about this particular law that was signed into place is that it is expected to end at the end of this year. So it's not something, from what it looks like to me, not something that's going to be a permanent part of our employer structure. Is just something that they're putting in place for this situation right now.
Right. And there it was signed into law on March 18th, supposed to be in effect no later than April 2nd. And remember, the first part of this is going to be that your employer should be paying for 10 days of short-term emergency pay. And this is going to allow time for these other benefits to kick in, because it's going to take some processing time. They're going to be payable after those first 10 days. So, my biggest concern as a small business owner is, how am I going to pay for these different things? You know what I mean? Like how if I have so many employees and I got to pay 10 days of sick leave and my business has closed up, like, it's going to be very tough. I might actually have to lay people off. So, that's going to be a little different type of thing. Normally with your Family Medical Leave Act, like, let's say you have a child, you go off to give birth, to the child, you stay home with the kid for, the couple weeks, maybe up to 6 weeks that you get for the family medical leave. And then your job is protected under that time frame. So you can come back based on this law. They can't fire you for having to go and give birth to your child.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But in this case, there's going to be some stipulations here. Yes, you're still protected technically under the Family Medical Leave Act. You're still protected that you should have your job back. However, there are some companies that are just not going to be able to make the cut, where they're going to have to cut down on employment. They're going to have to cut down on those particular jobs. And so even though your job is normally protected, there are some exceptions to that. You want to talk a little bit about those?
Let's see.
What
Where
type
are
of
we? What type
jobs?
of job
Yeah.
protection?
Yep.
New law includes an exception to this requirement for employers with fewer than 25 employees if the employee's position no longer exists. That's pretty much
Due to operational changes, right?
due to
So,
operational changes.
so in other words,
Okay.
what
Due to
it's saying.
operational changes. So basically, exactly what you were saying. If we need to downsize, if we need to lay people off, if it gets to a point. I mean, I was talking with Jimmy, with our business partner today, and he is expecting, he threw out a big number. I don't know how big it's going to be, but he was like, it could be 30 to 40% attrition.
Yeah,
right?
we're talking about agents that are not able to be agents anymore, or
Agents that aren't able to be agents anymore, or customers that fall off, that aren't able to make their insurance payments anymore.
Yeah, because money's tight, and insurance is one of the
Yeah.
things that you just don't think about paying first when you have to choose between putting food on your table and paying your insurance bill. So,
Yep.
In light of that, we're thinking of that too. Like, how do we structure this? Because we don't want to let people go. We want to make sure we keep everybody on staff, but at the same time,
Yeah.
there's going to be things that happen that are out of our control, right?
Right.
And so, we're looking at these
the
laws.
End of the day, the lights have to stay on.
Absolutely. And so we're looking at these laws, and we're trying to figure out what is the best a course of action for everybody. And so if we understand this, if we share with you guys, it's a little bit more informative for us. It's a little more informative for you, and we're all on the same path. Man, there's a lot of different things. There's also exemptions on who's exempt from, or who's not eligible for these types of healthcare, this type of family medical leave. And the reason why you're going to be not eligible is because we're not letting you get off work. Essentially, healthcare providers, emergency responders, those type of people, we need you at work. And so they're not eligible for
Right.
the Family Medical Leave Act.
Yep.
Which kind of sucks, but at the same time, this is your time to shine, right? This is the biggest point in our history that we need people in those spaces. Supposedly it's going to get a little worse before it gets better as far as people getting sick. So we need these people out there as much as possible.
Yep. And there was another thing that I was reading here about for employers. How are employers, because we were just talking about this, right? About what happens if, the companies that y'all are working for, the companies that these people are working for, if they are not able to make ends meet, there actually is some way that they're trying to help for the employers, which one of the things that they're looking at is a refundable tax credit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Difference between a tax write-off and a tax credit, right?
A tax credit is a dollar for dollar reduction against your tax liability. So let's say you made $100,000 this year, a deduction would lower the amount of income that you're paying taxes on. So if I had a $30,000 deduction, I made 100 grand. I'm not going to pay taxes on 100 grand. I'm going to pay taxes on 70 grand, right? Now, after we figure out how much your taxable income is, you're going to have a tax that you actually pay the IRS. This is the dollar amount that you actually pay. Like if you go to the cashier,
they determine like your tax bracket and all of that.
Yeah. After that, right? So we calculate your tax. So we figure out how much you owe the IRS. Right. And a credit is it's like a gift card. It reduces the amount that you owe the IRS. And so there are two types of credits, the refundable and non-refundable. A non-refundable tax credit will allow your tax to get to zero, and then that's it. You used it up. Whereas a refundable, you get it down to zero, and anything in excess will come back to you. And so legislation passed for this particular law is allowing a 100% refundable tax credit, and it's calculated against the employer's portion of Social Security taxes. So if you guys don't know, or if you're a W-2 employee, when you look at your paycheck and they take money out of your paycheck, part of it is for Social Security, part of it is for Medicare, part of it's for federal income tax, part of it's for state tax, part of it's for local tax, and then you have other deductions that you have associated with you. Maybe it's a garnishment, maybe it's a 401k, maybe it's a like a cafeteria plan, other deductions there. But the tax wise, Social Security, Medicare, state and local and federal, those are the main things that everybody gets taken out. Now your employer pays half of your Social Security and Medicare tax, and you pay the other half. And so when they're talking about calculating this percentage of tax credit, it's going to be based on what that employer is withholding from Social Security tax, and it's going to be capped at $200 a day and $10,000 per for this entire year for each of the employees that they have to they have to put up the money for their sick leave and that sort of stuff. So the government is trying to put the money back into the economy the best way they can for these employers. My biggest concern as always is this is something that's reactive. I'm not actually going to see this if I'm paying out of pocket as an employer. I'm not going to see this money until I file my 2020 tax return. And so it's kind of
basically you're paying the money today to keep people employed, to help them keep food on their tables. And as a company, you're eating that cost right now. But when it comes to tax season next year, you're going to get all that money back.
You're going to get a lot of that back. Right. And so, and that's usually how it works when you're filing these tax credits. Now, I haven't dug as deep as I want to. I'm going to talk to some people probably here very soon about these different things, whether or not they're going to let us put this, through our quarterlies, when we file our quarterly payroll taxes. I'm not exactly sure because it's based on Social Security. That would be kind of cool. And that would be a different change as far as getting that money, or at least withholding that money, not actually having to pay that Social Security amount over and just keeping it as a existing cash flow into our businesses. But as of right now, the way this sounds from what we're reading, this is going to be, based on whatever return you file at the end of the year. So it'll be your 1065, 1120, 1120S, whatever it is that your or Schedule C, whatever it is that your entities is filing for that particular year. So there are things in place to help small businesses. It's just, again, it's going to come down to a cash flow issue. And there's a lot of businesses who are struggling with that. That's why I had Humberto on the show yesterday talking about different opportunities to find money to help survive during these times. So, there are different opportunities out there if cash flow is an issue, and there are things that they're putting in place as far as being able to earn that cash back with these tax laws.
So part of the reason that you're taking this loan is to keep your employees funded during this crisis. According to this law, you could get a lot of that money back next year at tax season, and it'll help to pay that loan back.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So that's
heartening.
It's hardening and it's nice. Now you just got to survive. Right. And that's
pretty
the hard part. So as far as the paid emergency, paid sick leave, like, who's eligible for that emergency paid sick leave?
Paid sick leave. I was just reading that part. Who is eligible? Well, we talked about that. How much? It's got to be people that are employed by companies with 500 or less employees, or government employers. But more importantly, how much can you get paid? If you are a full-time employee, you can get up to 80 hours of paid leave for this. And if you are only a part-time employee, you would get, it says you are entitled to a typical number of paid hours over 2 weeks. So whatever your 2 week average is, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be calculated based on what part-time means to you.
Hmm.
Are you a 20-hour a week person? Are you a 30-hour a week person? Are you a 10-hour a week person? So there'll be some different changes for you there. And this is a big effect because I mean, just today I got a call from our kids' school district, and the principal basically said, I think it was a superintendent, I'm not exactly sure. It was a voicemail. And it was basically saying that schools are closed indefinitely, right? And that word indefinitely is in the way
Strikes
he said it.
fear into the hearts of parents everywhere.
Yeah. But let's clarify what indefinitely means. Indefinitely just means they don't know when school's going to come back. It doesn't mean school's closed forever, right? So
No.
initially when we went out of school, when they closed the schools, they said school will be back April 3rd, April 6th, whatever it was.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
had a date in mind. Now what this message is saying, and just to kind of ease parents, they don't know when we're going to come back. They can't definitely say April 3rd or April 6th because we don't know when this curve is going to happen. So the big thing right now is to lessen the curve, right? Or what's
We
the
don't even
saying?
know flatten the curve. Yeah.
Flatten the curve, right? And so
Yeah.
right now that's the big thing, is flatten the curve. In other words, there's growth happening in this spread of COVID-19. There's growth in the number of people who are going to what is it called?
They're
Contract
expecting
it.
56% of the California population to get this.
Now that means that how fast we contract this thing, that's the curve that we're talking about. We want to lessen or flatten that curve. We want it to, if we isolate, it's gonna be people getting infected, but less and less as fast as possible. And that's the idea. The other thing I learned about yesterday was there's actually two strains of this coronavirus. One which is more like the common flu, and the other one which is very detrimental if you have those underlying conditions. And the problem is we don't, they're both going around. So when you hear somebody like, oh, it's just the flu, they're not wrong. They just don't understand the overall picture of what is happening. There's the two strains, and so you're not knowing which one you're getting. That's what the biggest issue is. So be careful. We're just trying to lessen, or flatten that curve, and in order to do so, they're making sure that we stay at home. And then when that happens, that's when we have to talk about this Family Medical Leave Act to cover some of those finances that are going to come into place. So there are reasons why an employee can take those family medical leaves. If they're subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation, which is happening now, the state is putting us in quarantine. If an employee has been advised by a healthcare provider to stay quarantined because they may have contracted or they are at a high risk of being contracted. If the employee is caring for an individual subject to the first two, so that is already contracted or is at high risk of contracting, or if your employee is caring for a minor child, if school or place of care is closed because of what's going on. So like when you hear about the schools closed indefinitely and you don't know when you're going back, and this turns into 4, 5, 6 weeks, this is why you want to start getting your family medical leave things underway. So the last one is if an employee is experiencing any other substantial or similar conditions, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is in consultation with the Department of Transportation and Labor to specify what that actually is. So those are people who can take the emergency paid sick leave. And remember, the sick leave is like a band-aid. It's going to get you to where the family medical leave kicks in. So what do the emergency paid sick leave benefits pay? So the sick leave is going to pay you up to $511 per day and a total of $5,110 total for the first 3 qualifying events. So this is the self-care stuff. And then after that, we're going to get into $200 a day and $2,000 in total for the last 3 qualifying events. So The first two are when you get quarantined, which is what we're talking, what's happening now, or when a healthcare provider is getting you quarantined because you're either experiencing symptoms or you've been exposed. And then the $200 a day, that applies to when you're taking care of somebody, when your school or your care provider closes, or you have some other substantial condition that's not allowing you to go to work. Right. So for the most part, I think, and I can't quote, I'm not an attorney, I'm not anything of, of stature here, but the state has issued a quarantine, stay at home. So I think most people in the state of California will qualify for that emergency paid sick leave, assuming you're in that employer criteria, less than 500 employees, you've been at the job for more than 30 days.
More than 30 days.
You're going to qualify for that up to $511 per day for the first, for up to $5,110 on your sick leave. After that, you're going to kick into the family medical leave. And that's the 2/3 portion. That's the 67% of your normal pay. And that has a cap in and of itself. So you're going to get some money through this to help lessen your troubles, but it's not going to be what you're used to. It's not going to be 100% of your paycheck if you're one of those people who doesn't have that money coming in. So on the plus side, I guess, I don't know how plus it is actually, but you're at home. It's not like we're going out to Disneyland. We're not going to the movies. We're not really going out to eat. So you're not driving around. You do have rents to pay. You do have that sort of stuff to pay. But at least we have less of these bills going out, and there is something put in place that allows us to get some money coming in to
basically what you're saying is basically we're not spending as much.
We're not spending as much, right? We're not spending as much. So if you're in a situation where you need to get this stuff squared away, start looking into processing your family medical leave. You know what? This article actually didn't say, and I wish it would, is how do we get started with applying for Family Medical Leave Act?
Oh, that's a good question.
So I don't know. I didn't see that. That's the one thing I didn't see in this article is how you get this stuff started. But I'm assuming it's nothing more than a quick little Google search, right? This is unemployment. This is where you go check that stuff out and just do a Google search and start that application process, because you're going to want to get that done sooner rather than later.
Yep. Because it's all going to take time anyway, and everything's getting done virtually now anyway. So here I am working from home.
And here's the thing too, be patient. There are long wait times on a lot of different things. If you're trying to call to get help, like with the IRS, tons of people calling because they have questions. You're going to try to get stuff done for this Family Medical Leave Act. That's why we're sending that out to you now, so you can get on there and start applying as soon as possible. But in the next day or two, there's going to be a lot of people that are starting to do their applications, and it's going to get busy, right? I'll give you an example. I had to activate a Wells Fargo debit card that I've had sitting here that I haven't used in a while, but the expiration date happens to be in March. And so I hop on the phone to activate it, and the key in process didn't work. So I had to call customer service. It took about 2 hours to get somebody on the phone to help me.
Holy crap.
And that's just because there's a large volume of calls, people concerned with their own financial issues, mortgages, and all that stuff. And there's fewer people.
You're like, I'm just trying to activate my debit card.
Right. But you got to exercise patience in this time because, people are at home. They're not able to go to work. So they got less staff and they still have a large volume of calls. So be patient. It's just put the phone on speaker, keep it around you, do something else, do what you need to do.
There are a huge volume of calls, with all these different companies. But one thing, I keep saying this, and, I want to make sure that people are aware that there are a lot of companies taking that social responsibility, taking corporate responsibility. And, I'm sitting here skimming through my emails, and here's another one from National General. Got one earlier today from Stillwater. Been seeing this more and more and more and more. Mercury earlier. Hey, if you are being financially impacted by the COVID-19 outbreak, please have them contact customer service. They're working with our insureds, they're working with their customers, they're working with everybody, trying to make sure that everybody is maintaining their policies, not losing coverage, because we know that people are going through rough times right now. So whether it's your mortgage, I saw Bank of America is allowing people to skip mortgage payments even. So I don't know. I mean, I don't even want to use the word skip. Like, is it actually a full, you don't have to make a payment and we're not gonna,
No, it's not gonna be, it's gonna be a skip, but they're gonna add it to the back of your loan. Right. It's not going, you don't get a free payment. Like, it's not not passing go. You don't get to collect $200, nothing like that.
Yeah.
They're just gonna restructure it. Yeah. You're gonna end up paying it on the back end. So,
I mean,
it is what it is.
Pretty much. I mean, if you need it, if you need that assistance, call your banks, call your insurance companies, call your cell phone providers, call your internet providers, call your utilities. Like, a lot of companies and agencies are coming together to help people out in this time, because it's rough for everybody out there, and they're pouring money into this thing to try and get everybody through. So
and we'll get through.
Ask for help.
Too shall pass. Tomorrow the sun will rise.
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gents, hopefully you guys got some good information. If you're listening to this, if you're on Facebook, we dropped the link in the comments. If you're on YouTube, we'll make you drop the link in the show notes. And if you guys have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out. That's all we got for you guys today.
Bye-bye.
And we're out.